What is the actual meaning of the cover?
It looks like a painting on someone's wall, like in the
but that doesn't solve the mystery of the old dude. So what I theorized, this guy is carrying a bundle of sticks, and another word for bundle of sticks is so what they're trying to say here is if you don't like Zeppelin, you're a and also the old dude is Jimmy Page, and he's carrying the so it's like they're saying that they're carrying the haters on their back. That's my theory. I think that's the most. Do I have to censor if I use it in like a different context?
The main thing I want to ask: what drew you to listen to Led Zeppelin?
Led Zeppelin, even when I was in my rap phase, was always a band that I admired. Not just because of the way that they work together, which I think is the biggest asset they have, but I think they're so influential on music in general. They inspired so much work after that. It even bleeds into rap, and I'm sure Genius is going to do a nonsense video about Zeppelin's influence on rap because they already have like Beatles and shit like that. And I wanted to do Zeppelin 4 because it's one that I haven't heard all the way through, and it's one that is one of their most iconic pieces. The first time I actually heard Zeppelin, I was 3 years old, and it was in School of Rock, in that scene where they're driving in the car and they're playing the Immigrant Song. And it made an impression because that's like the only thing that I remember from being 3 or anything before 10, actually.
It's definitely a great album. My favorite, though, like I've told you, is 2. It's a really cool competition for Zeppelin fans of the first 4 to pick. Leave in the comments, what's your favorite between 1 and 4?
Yes, there you go. If you think it's 2, like the video. And if you think it's 4, also like the video. And subscribe. The entire album kicks off with, I think, one of the most iconic guitar riffs in history, which is crazy because it's not even the most iconic guitar riff on this album. The mic in front of the crunchy amp sound is super primitive, but it's almost an aesthetic now, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bonham destroys the drums as usual. Robert Plant glides in the vocal melody like usual. I think he's one of the most underrated singers in rock history. The flows that he comes up, did we establish what they call it outside of rap? What do they call that?
I don't think we did. We should,
the flow, the way the vocal melody and the way he puts it down, whatever you want to call that.
I was thinking of Robert Plant with a chain and like
dreads and like gold teeth. Yeah. Even if the lyrics aren't necessarily like Shakespearean, it doesn't need to be, because the way he puts it down is just so spectacular. Legendary song that I think has an immeasurable amount of influence on today's music, and it's my personal favorite on the entire album. So I gave it a 10 out of 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
10 out of 10, really?
It's my favorite on the album.
Shit. To kick off the album, excellent. It's named Black Dog because a Labrador dog that wandered around the studio while they were recording this. What the song is actually about is a failed relationship with a gold digger. So,
because I thought you'd have a failed relationship with a gold digger.
Yeah, I mean, those usually always work, right? So I think as a way to kick it off, I gave it a 9.
Rock and Roll sounds like the edgy stepchild to Johnny B. Good. This album is packed with top tier work, so people kind of overlook this one. The way everyone works so well, and like I mentioned, I think it's Led Zeppelin's biggest asset, together makes it like almost an orchestral piece. Bonham's ending solo, the cherry on top. I don't have too much to say other than that, but I gave it an 8 out of 10.
The way it captures the essence of rock and roll, which is what they went for. They wanted to get back to the sound of rock and roll. I think I probably heard this song 4 times a day, every day. And
you've said that about 5 songs on this album.
Because this album did so well that this is all the radio time it gets. I think it perfectly captures the whole essence of the whole thing. So I gave it 8.5.
I've always been curious, what is the meaning behind the dickless fairy that's on their logo, that's on your shirt right there?
Icarus from the story. The guy that flew too close to the sun and lost his wings.
What's that?
You ever heard of that story?
No.
It's basically a story of like, don't get cocky and don't be prideful. Basically, he got
Is that why he's missing his cock?
Yeah, they took it off. He got these wings and he thought he was like hot shit, and everyone was like, yo, don't be too crazy or else you're gonna learn the lesson. He's like, nah, fuck you guys. And he got too close to the sun, and then his wings melted off and he fell.
Ah, okay. And what does
I don't know why
they
picked that.
Okay.
I should really look into that though.
Yeah.
Leave a comment if you know. This song, kind of like how you said earlier off camera, it's Celtic folk saga like song.
Yeah, it sounded like a Scottish war movie.
Yeah, it's not by any means a bad song, but I wouldn't wake up and like drink my coffee and be like, I gotta go listen to the Battle of Evermore. It also just kind of feels weird on this album after having the first 2 tracks go the way it was. It's a song about mythological struggles between good and evil, And it's also the only track they had with a guest vocalist. Robert Plant used Sandy Denny.
I actually didn't rate this one because I was waiting for you to explain the meaning, because I thought maybe like I'm missing something here.
It's just about good versus evil, basically. No,
Because it's
that
just
and the guest
basically
singer.
the same. It's just the guitar for however many minutes,
song.
right?
I don't want to be too rough. 6.5.
I'll take your word for it. I'll go with that too.
Okay.
Oh shit. This song is so inspirational. It makes me want to go to the nearest music store and just play the beginning riff
But you're not allowed
for
to.
4 hours. The flutes, along with the main melody, give it that same Scottish war movie feel. The incredible atmosphere that it delivers, the majestic sound that it adds to on top of the guitar. Zeppelin has made a career out of making something out of very little. And I think that's exactly what they did here. It's just the guitar, maybe another guitar, and the flutes going, but it sounds like a whole symphony. The back half with Bonham's drums, where they add that in, makes it almost a perfect song, because that's what you were kind of waiting for the entire time. And it does take a little bit to get into that. But I think it's a great build-up and a great way to introduce you to, I think, one of the greatest drummers of all time, at least the greatest drummer of all time, I think, not named Neil Peart.
He's definitely up there, but I think Neil's better.
Well, because Bonham did it with like a 4-piece kit, you know what I mean?
That is a good,
like, so
that's
that's kind of how I look at it. It's like looking at Jimi Hendrix versus like Eddie Van Halen. Van Halen built upon what Hendrix did, so I kind of look at it that same way. Even if this isn't a song that you like warm up to before like a huge boxing match or something, the importance and the impact of this song is not to be understated, and the only way you can not understate it is by giving it another 10 out of 10, the second on this album.
Okay.
For me.
Like you were saying earlier about underrated, John Paul Jones, the bass player, and he also did keyboards and he helped produce, is one of the most underrated bass players and musicians of all time.
Actually didn't even know his name until you just told
That
me
proves
about
my
it.
point. Yeah. His work is phenomenal. The beginning of the song with the recorders, that was his idea, which I think adds a whole level of volume and mythical just aspect to it. Nobody wants to give John Paul Jones credit. So if you're watching this, John Paul Jones, you're welcome.
Shout out to John Paul Jones.
The biggest complaint I've heard people say is like, oh, it's so long. Ugh. Yeah, it is long. Yeah, it takes time to get to that point, but they did that on purpose.
It's a build-up.
It's a build-up. And the song is about a story of a greedy woman who is overly optimistic about her unpromising future. That's why it says buying the stairway to heaven, which I think is a really awesome point in life, because a lot of people do that. They think if they only act good in terms of getting where they want, like heaven at the end, then they think it's okay. That's why the saying, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. The musicianship, the mythical feel, and the historical standing, I have to give it a 10.
There you go.
Anything less is a crime.
Yeah, should be arrested like if you try to play it in a music store. Misty Mountain Hop is one of the songs that was in our first Guess the Song, right? That was one of yours.
Yeah, it was.
The electric piano following the guitar, I think, gives the main melody a great sound. This is also one of my favorite vocal melodies from Plant so far on this album. I don't have too much more to say about it, but I like the general aspect. I like the vibe of it. I gave it a 7.
You said you liked the keyboard, the electric piano.
Yep.
Kind of, yeah. That was John Paul Jones that I just
Again?
talked about. This song doesn't really too much on the meaning. This is more of like a sit back and like enjoy the music. Like it's just a feel good song. Nothing really that you want to sit and analyze or think about too hard. So I give it an 8.
I think Bonham steals the show on this whole thing. I actually had no idea you used the 4 drumsticks on this one before you told me that.
Yeah, that's
before
why
we started. It drags on a little bit long. I think it's a good contribution to the album because of how Bonham did that, use that technique, but it in general I don't think is like a staple on the album. I don't know if this is a radio hit or not. I don't think it is.
It's never on the radio.
Yeah, so I give it a 6.5.
It's pretty cool that he brought the ingenuity to use 2 in each hand. And I'm not a drummer, but like that's pretty cool. Yeah, it does kind of drag on, and it's definitely not the strongest track on the album. It fits well, I think, but there's really not too much to say other than that it was cool the way John played and the way he did it. That made the time signatures weird. So I'd probably give it 7. This song, which I think we should do a remake for 2020 called Leaving
Leaving
California.
California?
Yeah, because Oh god. See, this song is about the story of a man who left his unkind woman and goes to California with dreams and hopes of finding his real love. And then he lives there for 5 years and realizes that California's a shithole and then leaves.
Oh, is that's
No,
that's the sequel.
That's the sequel
Okay.
that they haven't released yet. It's a great change of vocal pitch. And it's just like a cool feel-good song, and like it really captures the essence of like traveling somewhere to experience a new life or outcome. I give it an 8.
I like the softer change of pace. That's cool. You know, I always like the softer songs because it kind of makes the album complete. It's not just one whole thing the entire time. The spacey vocal effects, I think, are probably my favorite part of the whole thing. Robert Plant, I believe, is one of the most underrated singers of all time. Not much to say after that. I give it a 7. I thought you said it was your favorite. Then maybe I should start this one then.
You should start it.
Yeah, so your favorite song in the album. I like the drums in the beginning paired with the harmonica. I think it gave it a really cool groove. It's like a country road trip song almost. Like you put this on when you drive in like to Florida or something and you just want to have something on in the background. You said you don't like it because you think it drags on for a little bit.
Big
and
time.
You said it's kind of repetitive. But I
Big
think
time.
if you really listen to the actual detail of the songs, if you listen to what's going on in the background, the different atmosphere, the softer harmonica or guitar, I couldn't tell which one that was. It is really a totally different song if you go deeper into it. I would be lying if I said it didn't drag on for too long, but again, I don't think that was the design of it. They wanted to end on like a nice, give you something to chew on for the end of the album. So I gave this one, I know you're going to hate me for it, but I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Jesus. My biggest complaint is it drags on. I think the drums in the beginning are great. It really catches your attention. The harmonica's cool. But then it just feels like it's stuck, like the CD's stuck and it's just playing the same thing. And then there's the cool break and I'm like, oh, cool, finally we're getting a cool change of pace. And then it goes right back to that. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Another reason that I think this isn't one of the stronger ones is because it's a rework of the 1929 song. I don't think this was the best thing to end the album with. I think Stairway to Heaven should have ended the album.
But how many people do you think usually go 8 songs deep into an album?
When like in 1971 they would, I think.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
Because they don't have like
Spotify. Actually, I don't know about that
they
because
shuffle.
my dad would never listen to side 2. He never listened to side 2 of
Side 2
Signal
of that?
ever.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
My overall rating of this song is 6.5.
Okay. All right. Album.
I don't think it's their best work. It's definitely up there. It's definitely in their best
Drop
work.
some hate comments.
Yeah, drop them.
Attack him personally. Go for it.
I think it's just it has the mainstream stigma, you know. Oh, it's got Stairway to Heaven. It's the best. It's the best album they've ever made. It's definitely good. Pretty stellar track of songs. Probably have to give it 9.
I think we were pretty even on it except for the last one. This song I give a lot more credit because one, it came out in 1971. How many other albums and how many other artists do you think were releasing stuff like this in 1971? The biggest factor to me is the influence that not just Zeppelin, but this record specifically has had on rock going forward and music in general going forward. Personally, if I were just listening to it as just someone who had no context whatsoever, I'd probably give it an 8. But because of that influence, because of how important it is, I give it a 9.5.
That's definitely true. I know Eddie Van Halen, famous for his hammer-ons and, you know, his fretting. He got the idea from watching Led Zeppelin live, and he saw Jimmy Page do like a slight hammer-on, and he just took that and to a
there you go.
So they definitely were very influential.
And remember, if you disagree, this is you.
That's you.
Yeah.